Hey everyone! Today I have with me Eva Gardner. She was born and raised in LA and began her professional career as a bassist right after graduating from UCLA with a bachelor's degree in ethnomusicology. Since then, she has performed and toured the world with artists such as Pink, Cher, Gwen Stefani, the Mars Volta, Tegan Sara, Moby and Veruca Salt. Welcome to the show.
Thank you. Hello.
So Eva, wow, how did you imagine your career being when you were back at UCLA?
When I was at UCLA, I just knew, well, from an early age, I knew that I just wanted to play music and I wanted to be a musician. And my dad was a bass player, so I just wanted to basically do what he did, follow in his footsteps, and just tour the world like he did, because it just sounded like an amazing life. And the funny thing about him is that he dropped out of school at 15 and toured the world. And so when I was 15, I was like, oh, cool, it's time now. This is the time that you do this. And when I was in high school, I realized that, no, actually, it's not how things work anymore. And times are different. And I needed to carve my own path. So I decided to go to college. And that was a big choice for me. I was the first person in my family to graduate from college. So that was big. But I just really knew that even though I wanted to tour the world and I wanted to get out there and just make it happen as quickly as I could, I just had this feeling that I needed to incubate a little bit longer. And I really wanted to finish school. I just thought it was just something that was important to me. And I was actually getting tour offers while I was in college, but I just decided that I just wasn't ready. So I turned them down, which is kind of strange.
Gosh. Yeah. So how does one get tour offers? I mean, that's amazing. It sounds like you already had, you had an example before you, getting to see your dad in that world, whereas other artists out there who are students or who are just starting out in their career may not have that example. How much of a role did that play for you? Like how, did your dad teach you the bass? Did you start playing at a very young age? What was that like growing up?
Interestingly, he had an aversion to me playing bass at first. Like he wasn't into the idea.
So it wasn't like the doctor telling their kid to then be a doctor.
Absolutely not. And I think if that was the case, I probably wouldn't have wanted to do it. And I think that part of the reason I don't know if it was part of his master plan or what, but he just wasn't really into me playing bass at all. So when I kept getting no, that made me want it more. And I really had to work hard and I really had to prove myself. And it was actually one of his best friends that gave me my first lesson. It wasn't him. And it was a friend that came over one day. His name was Andy Johns, and he was a legendary producer engineer. And he showed up with a bass. It just knocked at our door, showed up with a bass and a little amplifier. And my dad thought that his friend was bringing in some stuff to check out. But he's like, no, this is for Eva. I'm going to give her a lesson. She's been begging you for years. And I finally sat down, had my first lesson, and it was just like a fish to water. And I just played the heck out of it. And at that point, I guess he realized that, okay, I guess she's serious about it. And I still didn't get my own bass. Like I borrowed a bass for 3 years before I got my own. And he did eventually turn around and so it was like, okay, she's serious about it. So he taught me how to change my strings, and we had some really good quality time as far as that's concerned. But I had to really prove that I wanted it. And it took a long time.
Why do you think he had this aversion to it? What do you think it was the society's pressure? Like, oh, Eva needs to follow this other route. She needs to go to school.
My parents didn't have any master plan for me or anything like that. I didn't grow up with you need to be a doctor or either do what I did or don't do what I did. There was none of that. But there's a couple theories. Maybe the music business is tough. And when he was doing it in the 60s and 70s, it was just as tough as it is now. And different, of course, but still not the easiest industry to be in. So I'm not sure if he was like, I don't want that for my daughter. Or if it was number two, when he was doing it in the 60s, it was like sex, drugs, and rock and roll. And that might've been like, I don't want that for my daughter. Or maybe I have a daughter. That's tough. She's a girl. That might be really difficult for her to navigate. So, it could be any or all or none of those things. But for whatever reason, I just always got the don't touch my stuff kid. when I was a kid. Like,
But you did it anyway. You're like, too bad. I'm passionate about this. I feel that same fire that you do. And I'm going to go ahead and learn this instrument and play it to my death.
Well, I still wasn't allowed to touch any of his or play any of his instruments. I had to borrow instruments for a long time. But again, I think that really made me want it even more. And I had to work even harder. So I'm actually grateful for that experience now and not having it handed to me. I mean, I got the idea in my head and I knew that's what I wanted to do. And it wasn't just like the red carpet was rolled out.
Yeah.
It was quite a challenge.
I kind of feel similarly with College Magazine, because when I wanted to quit my first job to start the magazine full time, I really thought my dad would be like, yeah, go for it, because he started his own business and he was a teacher and he had quit his job to start his own company, which was a t-shirt printing business at first, and then went on and grew to become a souvenir business. And but he wasn't. He was the one that was like, no, keep your job. What are you thinking? And I really just had to find it within myself and fight for it myself. So I think there is something, like, looking back, I almost see that as a gift, because maybe if he was kind of like, I'll support you, we've got you. And not that they weren't supportive emotionally, but it was kind of like, be smart about the path that you're going to take and make sure that you can take care of yourself financially. And I think I think that was wise at the time. And I did, but I ended up getting an investor and quitting my job, but in a smart way.
Yeah, I think something clicks when you make that decision. And if you have like the rally of troops behind you, which is it's a fantastic thing, but and when you make that decision and you have those troops behind you and you have that support, that's great. But when you don't have that support, that's a whole other thing, because that really tests whether you really want it or not. Because you have to kind of go against the grain and jump through hoops to really get there. And I think that's a testament to how much you do want it.
Well, that's
and to how far you're going to go.
Well, that's one of the reasons I really wanted you on the podcast, because I feel like following your passion for music and seeing it all the way through is really going against the grain today, because people are just like, it's so competitive, it's so cutthroat. They don't believe you when you have a dream that big. How did you stand up to that?
I just knew that what I wanted to do was tour and go on the road. And I didn't have a plan B. It was like, I just knew I had this vision, and I just was fortunate in the people that I met and the connections that I made and the things that I had manifested to see that vision come to fruition.
Yeah, I love these words, vision. It really is about setting that intention and that one thing and staying focused on it, and just going for it. How did you first get started? How did you first jumpstart your career journey and end up being part of bands as influential as Gwen Stefani, Cher, Tegan Sara, and now Pink? I mean, how did you first do that? How did you make that happen?
Well, it all starts with starting and playing in bands, playing at every club in LA that I could, being at every show that I could, and just being part of the scene and the community and the network and building the network. And I think that when you put yourself out there and you play with other people, they see how you work. Work ethic is a really, really big thing. It's like whether you're playing to 2 people in a club or 200 people or 2,000, you should be playing the same show, right? Like, I'm like, oh, there's only 2 people. I'm not really going to give it my best tonight. Like, sometimes those are the shows where you don't know who one of those 2 people are. And you never know how people come back in your life, right? So I just think for me, I found it to be so beneficial to just do your best at all times. And for any show, make it your best show. Like, it's going to be your last show. And work ethic is huge. And I think being on time is huge, and respecting people's time and respecting people by doing your homework. I mean, that's a huge thing too, being prepared. All of those things add up to making you hireable, like people wanting to work with you. And if you work in a situation where you check off all those boxes, then that person might recommend you for another situation. So I've only worked through recommendations. And aside from, I mean, there's auditions here and there, right? But with those auditions, I'll tell you the story actually about how I got the Pink gig.
Okay.
And I'm going into 12 years with her, actually. And it all started out with an audition for a show called Rockstar. And it was a TV show where they were trying to find a new singer for NXS. So I auditioned to be in the house band. And I thought the auditions went well, and I kept getting callbacks, but in the end, I didn't get the gig, right? So I'm thinking like, oh, that's it. That's the end of my career. That was like my big break that could have been. It was the big TV show. This could have been like my huge career changing moment. And so that's how I felt after I didn't get the gig. And 2 years later, I got a call from the musical director from that TV show. And he remembered me from that audition. And he said, hey, I'm also the musical director for Pink. I remember me from 2 years ago. I remember getting the audition. Pink needs a bass player. Would you like to try out? And I said, well, yeah, of course. And so I tried out. It was like me and 2 or 3 other bass players. And I got a call back that said, pack for 3 months. You got the gig, pack for 3 months. We'll send you 4 albums worth of material, and we'll see you in 3 days.
Oh my gosh. Did you just drop everything in that moment when you got that call?
Yeah. Yeah. And actually the funny thing is, when I first got that call, I was in a movie theater, and I was, like movie theater experience, like you're there for 2 hours, and I got the call while I was in the movies. And so I got out, I saw a voicemail on my phone, and I checked the message, and it said, hey, this is Paul, MD, blah, blah, blah. You got the gig. But if you don't call me back within the next 10 minutes, I'm giving it to the next person.
Oh my gosh.
I was like, oh God.
That's like the one time you're really glad you looked at your phone during the movies.
I wasn't in the movie. No, I was like, I already done with the movie.
Okay.
I walked out of the movie and saw that message that I had gotten like an hour and a half prior.
So you were the respectful moviegoer, and then you're like, oh shit.
And I was like, great. I've been in a movie theater for 2 hours. Holy crap. So, I called him back, and I was like, it's me. And he said, I was just totally messing with you. He was playing a mean joke. But yeah, and then he told me I got the gig, and they'd see me in 3 days. So it was like a whirlwind. But that's like my point is, like, sometimes you just never know, right? Like, that was an audition that I had done 2 years prior. Mm-hmm. And I mean, I gave those tryouts everything, right? But I didn't get the gig. But that person remembered me. He remembered that I'd learned the songs. He remembered that I gave it my all. He remembered me basically, and called me 2 years later. And then after doing Pink, that's how I got all these other shows. You know, I work with a lot of the same people on the Cher tour, me and the same drummer from Pink, and a lot of it's just recommendations through people that you meet in stepping stones. And it's like I met the Cher people through Pink, and then I got the Gwen Stefani gig through the Cher people, and then I got the Tegan Sara gig through the Gwen Stefani thing. So it's just all these little stepping stones.
Okay, so you're like a free agent. You don't just have to be with one artist.
No. Yeah. So it's like, I mean, for instance, if Pink is working, I'm working with Pink, and I can't, do other stuff because we're busy. Mm-hmm. But when she's off, we're able to do, we all work wherever we got to go. So.
Yeah. Well, it sounds like you're, just as in any career, it's all about the relationships that you build and the impression that you leave on other people, and showing up ready, showing up prepared. So tell me about a day in your life as the electric bassist for Pink. What does it look like?
So when we're on tour, we are moving pretty much almost every day or every other day, because we are on a tour bus, and our shows, pretty much after each show, we head to the next show and we leave for the next city. So it's like, an example of a day would be like, wake up and have breakfast, try to get in for the hotel breakfast.
You eat breakfast? Stop it.
Sometimes if I get up early enough, try to get in for like the hotel breakfast, and get ready to go to sound check. We go to sound check probably around like 2:00, depending on what we need to do. Get to the venue, we'll go to catering, we'll get a coffee, get some snacks, and then do a sound check. We'll do a band sound check first. And then the boss will come, and she'll sound check afterwards, make sure everything's okay. And then we'll
is the boss Pink, or the boss is somebody? Okay.
Yeah. So like for Pink, right? So she would come and so this is like a day in the life of the Pink tour.
Okay.
And then she will come and do her sound check, and then we'll have dinner, and then we'll go into makeup and wardrobe and get ready for the show. Then we'll play a big show.
Do you do your own makeup, or do you have like a crew, or what's it like?
We do our own makeup.
Okay.
Yeah. If we're doing TV or something like that, we'll usually have someone help us out there. But for the shows on tour, we'll do our own makeup.
Well, you guys look rad. I've seen you perform.
Thank you. Thank you. And and then we'll play our show. And then if we have guests afterwards, we'll visit with our guests and then pretty much hop on the bus and go to the next show, go to the next town.
So it's go, go, go. You're not getting to like, let's explore the city. You know?
I mean, if we have a day off in a city, we will. But if we're rolling in and to a city day of, and then we have a show that day, we don't really have that much time because we're leaving right after the show.
Yeah. Well, how many days do you get off? So is that like a 3-month span, like nonstop, you're going from city to city?
It can be. Yeah, it can be.
That seems intense. And so it's almost like the people that you're working with, I mean, this is your family. It's like you're at sleepaway camp for 3 months with this group of people.
Pretty much. And that's why it's so important. Like it's the other side of getting a gig and keeping a gig is, yes, how you play and how you perform and all of those things, but it's also who you are, right? And how you behave with other people and how well you get along with other people and how it is to hang with you, right? It's all about the hang, they say. I
think that's applicable for everything, for every industry, because when it comes down to it, when you go to that interview, they already feel that you're qualified on paper. But they want to know you. They're going to have to hang with you. They're going to have to, you show up to work every day with these people. I mean, you're around them for so many hours. They want to know that the communication is going to be nice. And that you've got this great energy to you, that you're passionate about what you're doing. And that's the whole point of Find Your Passion career, because when you speak what you're passionate about, you know, doors really do open, opportunities come your way. And when you convey your passion in an interview, someone's like, yeah, I want to work with someone like that because they have the same passion I do for what we're going to be doing.
Exactly. And I also think that carrying that through is important as well. Like if you're on tour for 3 months, like keeping that passion and keeping that positivity and keeping a good attitude is really, really important, because it's like people are away from their families. It's sometimes it can be difficult out there to be away from home, and but we need each other to keep each other's spirits lifted. And although it's amazing, I mean, like everyone's super great, but I think that's the thing, is like she's chosen to create a beautiful family around her of people that are positive, that do see the bright side of life, that do see the cup half full. And that's a lot of being out there and being on the job, is being able to be positive, right? And to be good hang and be adaptable and be easygoing. And that's a big part of it.
Well, it sounds like you're constantly having to come back to your why. Why do we do this? You know, you show up to another concert, you know, this isn't just another city, you know, you have to come back to why, you know, why you wanted to go this route and why you're there on that day. You know, what would you say is your why? What gets you up in the morning?
My why is, I think that is being connected with other people. And that's a big why of why I do what I do, because I love connecting with people. I love playing music with people. I love performing with people. I love performing for people. And it's all about that connection.
Yeah. Well, and what an awesome way to experience that. I mean, on, you know, such a stage like that in front of thousands of audience members and connecting with them through what you love to do, which is music. That's beautiful. Absolutely. What does that feel like? I mean, when you first got up on a stage of that kind of magnitude, what did that feel like? Like, do you remember your very first big gig?
Yeah, my first arena show was in England, opening up for the Rolling Stones.
Oh my gosh. Okay. How nervous were you?
It was crazy. I wasn't nervous. I was more excited. I was so excited. And interestingly enough, my dad played in a band with Ron Wood, who's in the Rolling Stones. So I grew up with him and his son. And so it was kind of an amazing full circle moment, because because he opened up for the Rolling Stones in 1967.
Oh my gosh.
So it was like he was the whole reason why I do what I do. And then here I am decades later opening up for the same band, which now includes a member that he grew up with. You know, he was in his very first band with Ron Wood. So it was a pretty special full circle moment for sure. So I was more excited than anything. And I just, it was just letting me know that I was exactly where I needed to be. Those little reaffirming moments.
So when you got out on stage and you saw this arena before you, you know, what did you think to yourself?
I was like, I made it.
I mean, yeah.
And that was my first bus tour also. It was the first, because I'd been touring, but in vans, you know. And so this was my first tour where it was a bus, and you have like your own little bunk that you sleep in, and you know, your little house on wheels. So it was just an epic time for me.
Yeah. Well, so what happens after you make it, right? So we have listeners out there who are like, you know, I want to make it, right? But then when you make it, I mean, I know for me, like my initial thought of making it was making my first magazine. But then when you make the magazine, you're like, well, I've got to do all these other things. It's not just like I've made it and now let's just celebrate and hang. Right. You know, you've got all these other goals. What was, you know,
well, so that's next? The thing. It's like, what's next, right? So I played the show. I'm like, yay, I played the show. And then the show's done. And then that's it. And then, okay, there's another show and there's more shows. But then a tour ends, right? And those cycles end. And so it's just working your way towards the next goal and the next cycle, and the next thing. I mean, it would be still be another, gosh, 4 or 5 years before I'd work with Pink. So in the interim, it's like, what are all these other goals that I can do? I was writing my music. I was playing in bands. I was doing my creative thing. I was painting, you know, doing all this, walking my dogs, you know, hanging out with family, doing all this other stuff. And so it's just, you just keep doing these little goals, I think.
Well, you dream big. It's clear that you dream big. Yeah. You know, you're downplaying it a little bit here, but obviously you set your sights very high.
Well, it's really interesting because there was a point after I felt like, okay, this is it. Like I've done it. And then I had a stretch where I wasn't really doing a whole lot. I wasn't really getting a whole lot of gigs. And I was like, this business is tough. Like I was kind of ready to give up. I was like, I don't know, maybe I should do something else. And then that's when things like started flowing again. Right. And that's when I started working with, was working with some people that really weren't, you know, the morals and values weren't really in line with mine. And so I was like, oh man, the music industry is just totally screwed. Like this sucks. Maybe I should just get out of it. And I was just having these thoughts. And then comes along the audition that I told you about. And then eventually the Pink gig. And that's when I was like, oh my God, wait, there are good people in music. This is amazing. And everyone I'd met was just so incredible. And that just, it was even, I thought that I gotten to the point, right? And then this was just even higher and even better and even more miraculous and wonderful and inspiring. And it's just knowing that there's more, I guess. Knowing that there's more out there.
I have a question from one of our college magazine editors, Alexandra Blackwell. She goes to Florida State University. She wants to know, because it sounds like you were kind of touching on this, what was one struggle you faced during the rise of your musical career and how did you work to overcome it? So it sounds like you were facing a lot of, you know, doubt about this industry for yourself. Was there a moment, you know, where you really faced a struggle and how did you work to overcome it?
I think one of the struggles that I faced with just in general was figuring out where I fit in the world as a woman. And when I started playing bass in particular, because it's sort of a male instrument and it's in a male dominated field, I really struggled with where to fit in that realm. And so at first I was like, do I just try to be one of the guys to fit in with the guys? Because it's a guy's game, right? So I would wear boys' clothes and like just try to be one of the guys, and it was really tomboyish and just to fit in with the guys. And then I of course, there's comments from teachers and, not very sexist comments and stuff. So I was just trying to figure out where I fit in with all that stuff. And
from teachers too.
Yeah.
These are supposed to be, your mentors, people lifting you up, and they're making the comments.
Yeah, exactly. So it was quite a journey for me to navigate through those choppy waters. And I think just over time and really being blessed with working with really incredible people that didn't care about what gender I was or what I looked like, or they cared about what I brought to the table as far as the music. And I just wanted to be a musician, right? Not a female bass player. I want to be a bass player, not a female bass player. Mm-hmm. So that was an interesting thing, but I eventually realized that I just had to own who I am and own what I am, that I'm a woman. And once that started happening, things really started flowing because I came across a lot. It actually ended up being a real benefit for me as a woman in music, as a female bass player, because you stand out, right? If I was just a dude, I'm just another dude who plays bass. Like, as a woman and as a bassist, like I stand out. So I have been in situations where I would try out for a gig and they were looking for a woman. They wanted to hire a female bass player. So I would get those calls.
It's your differentiator in that industry.
Exactly. But the interesting thing is there's also been moments where I've auditioned for bands and I didn't get the gig because I was a girl. And it's because the lead female singer didn't want the competition on stage.
Oh, wow. I was going to say, being a woman, do you want to work for a lead female artist? And did that attract you to a band like Pink or working for Gwen Stefani? Was it because that they were female leads, or were they looking for other women to be part of their band? Was that part of it?
I think either they were looking for it or they were open to it. They're not threatened, right? I think that it's really sad that a female lead singer has to feel like she doesn't want the competition on stage, right? Like, we should empower each other. We should encourage each other. We should lift each other up. There's enough for everybody. Mm-hmm. It shouldn't be a competition. And I think that that's changing. And there's definitely a lot more women in music than when I started. And but those are all things that were little challenges, but I'm grateful for them, because without them, I wouldn't be where I am. I wouldn't be who I am.
Well, I love what you're saying about the competitive mindset, because I think that when you go in with that competitive mindset, that there's just not enough room for anybody else, and you're just kind of like, you got to look out for number one. That mentality is what repels other people away from you. It's the mentality that there's plenty of opportunity. Mm-hmm. And it sounds like you've embraced that mentality that attracts people to you, that, there's enough, there are enough bands for everyone. There's enough opportunity for there to be endless music. To look at it that way, that's how, and in your industry, and I think in every industry, you have to keep an open mindset and build relationships and make friends with the competition, and not just see them as the competition. I think there's healthy competition, but I think also knowing that there's space for all of you.
Yeah, of course there's competition. But just last month, actually, I was talking to a bass player friend of mine, and we were going to meet for coffee. And my family has a British pub in Hollywood called the Cat and Fiddle. So we were going to meet there and hang out. And he recommended that we make it a bass player hang. And I was like, okay, cool. And so basically we just invited a bunch of bass players, LA bass players that were in town. And we had a huge, just like the most fun hang ever. And of course, we're all competitors. Like, we all compete for the same gigs. Some of these guys are doing the gigs that I've had and vice versa. Like, there was one photo that the guys took. I think there was like 9 of them or something. And they'd all played bass for Shakira at one time or another. But they're all there hugging and just being so friendly. So I think the community, and remembering that the community is really, really important. And of course, we're all, like I said, we're all in competition with each other, but it's not at the end of the day, it's like, why are we playing music? Why are we doing this in the first place? And I think if we come from a place of lack or feeling like our or scarcity, then that's what we put out there.
Yeah.
And that's what we manifest.
Yeah. Well, I'd love to hear about the object you brought and how it reflects your passion.
Okay. So I brought some paintbrushes.
Beautiful.
And I started painting when I was a kid, and before I even started playing music. And I just felt like it was just a form of expression for me. And I actually used to like have this part of my thing is I used to like splash paint all over my paintings. And I would get in trouble when I was a little kid for that. But I still do it. And I think that expression, right? Like that's part of my passion is having colors and shapes and sounds and vibrations and all those things, and just putting those things out there as an expression of yourself and who you are. And I love painting because I'm not it's a yin to my yang with music, right? It's just another part of the arts for me, and it's another thing that I love to do. And whereas like with the song, it's like an audible thing, right? It's using like this sense, but with painting, it's like a visual thing. And it just gets me out of my music head for a time, and it's really, really fun.
Yeah. Oh, I think it's so important to switch gears. I like to paint too. So
yeah. And there's nothing attached to it for me. Like with music, of course, there's more pressure because I went to school for it and I'm known as a musician and a professional. But with painting, it's like, there's no, like, I don't care what it looks like or what anybody thinks. Cause it's like, it's just an open passion for me.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not.
Yeah. It's not a business.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, there isn't the same kind of pressure, I guess.
Yeah. Well, I mean, yeah. And the pressure of getting on stage in front of thousands,
Mm-hmm.
I'm sure that, yeah. Does that ever even go away?
It's always exciting. I mean, even, gosh, we played a show, I remember in Quebec City with Pink actually. And it was a festival and it was like 100,000 people. And there was just something about the energy. Like we'd all been playing, again, I've been with the band for like over a decade at that point. We've all played together. We've all played so many shows together, but it's just a moment where you walk out there and you just see 100,000 people and just the energy, and it just doesn't get old. It's just exciting and overwhelming in the best way.
Oh, that's so cool. Like, what a high.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. It's like, it gets your heart pumping, you know? It's like an excited nervousness.
It makes sense that you've turned to art because you're at such a high at these concerts. And then it sounds like art is probably a really nice, peaceful escape and calming experience and hobby.
Yeah. It's like a meditation for me. And I actually started doing, more like in my hotel rooms. Like I'll travel with like a little thing of watercolors and some paintbrushes and some pens. And, yeah, it's just a really beautiful meditation for me. I just really enjoy it. And it's just another side. It's just another facet of the arts for me.
Yeah. Well, and for those listening, just so you know, I'm here is this your studio?
Yes.
Yeah, I'm here in Eva's studio, and behind her is one of her paintings. So if you check out the video, if you're listening to audio, you can see her painting. It's beautiful. So thank you for sharing that with us. I love it.
Yeah.
Well, I have one last question for you.
Yes.
What career advice do you have for college students who are passionate about music?
I would say like if they want to be musicians or if they want to be in the field. Yeah. I would say, I mean, just get out there. I was playing every show I could, say yes to everything. Well, I mean, most things, not everything. Say yes to stuff. If it feels good, if it feels right, just put yourself out there, and you never know who you're going to meet. You never know who you're going to cross paths with. And I think it's important also, again, the whole work ethic thing, the whole the whole being on time, being prepared. I can't stress enough how important being prepared is, being engaged, and just being easygoing. I mean, that's a really big one too. And building the network, I think, is the most important thing, right? It's like if someone is, like for instance, if there's like a musician that's like the best ever in the whole wide world, and they're just like a virtuoso at what they do, but they're a total asshole. Sorry, they're if they're a virtuoso and they're like a complete jerk, and then pick the other person who is great at what they do, maybe not as good as a virtuoso, but they're really, really pleasant to be around. They're really a nice person. They really are caring and easygoing. Then who would you rather work with, right? So I think those are things to really keep in mind. And of course, yes, it's important to really be the best you can be at your craft. It takes sometimes going above and beyond, doing the extra credit to really show that you care. And when people show that you care, it goes a long way.
Are you still having to practice like the hours that you practiced, back when you were in college with your music major?
Yeah, I still practice. I still take lessons. There's always stuff to learn. There's always stuff to learn. And I think that that's a big part of it too, is always be willing to grow and expand and continue to hone your craft. And also being versatile. I think being versatile was a really big one too. Something that really helped me out was learning lots of different styles of music, lots of different kinds of music, and being willing to be open to trying different styles and different techniques, and also different instruments, opening yourself up to different instruments. There were some gigs where they asked me if I could play keyboard bass, and I said, sure. Took some piano lessons and got right on it.
Yeah. Well, having that attitude too, like, knowing that within you that you can learn it and you can, having that faith that you can pull it off and saying yes.
Right. Yeah. Saying yes and putting in the hours that it takes. I think I remember there was one time when I was like playing keyboard bass on a gig, and the part was written by a piano player. So it was like really, really intricate and really fast and had a lot going on there. And my first thing that I said to myself was, I can't do that. There's no way I can do that. How am I going to do that? And then I shifted that, right? I changed that dialogue and I said, I can do that. And I figured it out. I slowed it way down and I practiced and practiced and practiced. And I did what it took to learn it. And I eventually did it. And I was actually really proud of myself. I was like, wow, I thought that I couldn't do that. But I put in the hours, and it took a lot of hours and a lot of time, but you just clear your schedule and make it happen. So you do what it takes basically to make it happen.
Yeah. I love that. Well, and you surprise yourself too.
Totally. And those are the best moments when you surprise yourself too. And you surpass your own expectations.
Yeah. Well, I want to encourage everyone listening today to take a chapter from Eva's book here and show up prepared. Whether you're a music student and that means being prepared and knowing who's in the room or knowing your music, or whether you're just going out there for your next gig or you're networking and being prepared by, knowing what you're showing up for, knowing who's in the room, doing that research. People will be impressed that you did that research, and it goes a long way. So thank you so much for being on the show, Eva.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for having me.
Yeah. Well, and thank you everyone for listening, and be sure to download and subscribe. And if you feel inspired, please leave a review. And remember, when you speak your passion, doors open. Bye, everyone.